English class. All right, so as with every class, we're starting out with our daily mini assignment. So pull out your sheet of paper, and our question today is, can something be good and bad at the same time? Can a day be the best, but also the worst? Explain. Think of an example to provide evidence for your answer. Remember, this is just kind of an informal, you can jot down notes and thoughts, but be ready to share. So take a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, to jot down some ideas on what you think about this. I know for me, today has been the worst because I have so many assignments due, but it's also pretty great because after today my assignments are done. So it could be something serious, it could be a lighthearted example. And if you feel like you've run out of ideas, go ahead and put your pens down so I know that you're ready. Go ahead and finish up your thought, and then turn to someone next to you and share your ideas. Alright, let's focus back up in front. Does someone want to share their ideas?
So I think it's really great when my brother and his family come home for Christmas because I get to see my baby niece and nephew and get to spend time with my family. But it's also kind of not that great because my brother and I fight a lot. We're 5 years apart and dramatically different people, so we do not get along very well. So like after the first 5 minutes, it's just all out war.
Okay. So does it turn all bad, or does it stay good and bad at the same time?
It stays good and bad the entire time they're home because there's bright shiny pieces of time with my niece and nephew, but anytime I spend too much time with my brother, it gets ugly.
Kelly?
Upcoming graduations are awesome because then you're done with school, but then there's also that feeling of, oh, well, what do I do now? That's very true.
Did anyone disagree with this? Did anyone say no? It has to be one or the other? Okay, cool. All right. So we'll come back to these ideas in a minute. Our learning targets for today. You will be able to perform a close reading of the first chapter of A Tale of Two Cities. You'll be able to determine the meaning of words to aid in reading comprehension. And you will be able to analyze the impact of specific words on the meaning of the text. So particularly the way in which Dickens uses word choice to set up the context of the novel. So we will be doing our close reading in class, and we will be determining meanings of words and then analyzing how those affect the text. So, duality. I didn't make this slide go correctly. Does anyone know what duality means. Pretend that definition is not up there yet. Can someone define duality? Colleen.
Two things.
Good. All right. So our dictionary definition, duality is an instance of opposition or contrast between two concepts or two aspects of something. So it's when something is two things at once and it contrasts. So how does this idea of duality connect to our DNA? Any thoughts?
In our DNA, we talked about being good and bad at the same time, and it seems like it's pretty much the definition of duality.
Good. All right. So, remember this concept, this idea of duality or contrast. We're going to use this idea to kind of frame our reading as we go forward. So, I will pass out our copy. You guys will all receive a photocopy. And this is so that you can write on it. You can use the strategies that we have been learning for annotating. So whatever you have determined is the best strategy for you, that is what you will use to mark the text as we read it. And again, as we begin reading, keep in mind that the structure of this is kind of that idea of duality. So any questions before we get started reading? All right. Does everyone have their copy? All right, so get your pens out. We're doing a kind of close reading you would do silently. So we're getting our copies. Okay, so I'll explain a little more while we're passing the rest of those out. So this is the type of close reading you would do silently by yourselves, marking up the text, but we're going to do it out loud. So if there's something that you have a question on, something that you think is important, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll kind of do this interactively. So, chapter 1, the period. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. That was our DMA topic, wasn't it? The best and the worst. All right. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. Anyone notice anything there?
They're opposites.
Yeah. Good. So what does that relate to?
The duality.
All right. It was the epic of belief. What does that word mean? The epic of belief. Colleen?
Is that the same thing when it's like epic, like that was the most epic party ever?
No. Sounds the same though. Antia.
Well, I've heard it said epoch, and I think it's like the era or the time of belief.
Good. All right. What would kind of give you that clue based on the context here?
It was the age of foolishness, so is it like just another way to say?
Yeah. All right. So this is one of our vocab words. Are we saying epoch?
Whatever you want to do.
Okay. So our dictionary definition of this is a period of time in history or a person's life typically marked by notable events or particular characteristics. So we're talking about time periods here, specifically a time period that has notable characteristics like belief, foolishness, wisdom. Note that Dickens uses a lot of different synonyms for time periods. He says times, age, epoch, season. Think about if this affects the text. What if he had just said times the whole way through? Would that have changed anything? All right. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. I don't know what that means. Incredulity. Anyone have any thoughts? Serena.
Maybe since we have so many opposites, it's the opposite of belief. It's like disbelief or unbelief.
Good. This is exactly right. So this structure of these contrasts, this duality, gives us clues for the words that we're not sure of, because it's opposites. So, incredulity, the state of being unwilling or unable to believe something. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us, had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven. We were all going direct the other way. So, there are a lot of contrast, a lot of duality in this first sentence. Anyone have anything that stood out to them? Any thoughts? Anything they're wondering? Brianna?
Light and darkness are capitalized.
I was wondering about that as well. Any thoughts on why they might be?
I'm not sure yet, but I think they'd be something I want to look for throughout the reading.
Yeah. Kelly?
I'm wondering if it might end up being like symbolic later in the story. My first thought was like lightness is kind of like religion or belief or whatever, and darkness is like sin or bad things.
So continuing on, in short, the period was so far like the present period. What periods are we talking about? We're obviously talking about time periods, but what's the present period and what's the period that he's talking about? Do we have any idea yet? This has all been pretty vague so far. So we'll keep reading, and hopefully Dickens will give us a clue so that we know what time period this is. You might already know about A Tale of Two Cities, so you might already know what he's talking about. But from the reading, we don't have any clues yet. In short, the period was so far like the present period that some of its noisiest authorities insisted on its being received for good or for evil in the superlative degree of comparison only. There was a king with a large jaw and a queen with a plain face. So I pulled up some pictures for you guys of the king with a large jaw, George III, and the queen with the plain face, Charlotte Sophia. And it does say in the text here that they were on the throne of England. So we finally have a little bit of context of maybe where some of this is going on. And then it says, there were a king with a large jaw and a queen with a fair face on the throne of France. So here is our king with a large jaw, Louis the, I can't read Roman numerals, and the queen with a fair face, Marie Antoinette of France. So looking at these pictures, we obviously have some contrast here. England and France, the two different sets of monarchs. Does anything come to mind with you guys for these pictures? Any of those descriptions? Not yet.
Wasn't Marie Antoinette the one who said, let them eat cake and like make people's heads fall off?
Yes. She was the queen with the fair face. So that might tell us that just because you have a fair face doesn't mean that you're a good person. What about the contrast between these two? This is our queen with a plain face. This is our queen with a fair face. Do we feel like they look different?
They're wearing hats, which they seem more traditional, maybe maybe more traditional or conservative as compared to the other two who seem more.
Yeah. So again, it's England and France. And you kind of can see a difference in even the style of the pictures. Serena.
Queen with the fair face, like the way she's posing, it kind of reminds me of like on CoverGirl magazine, like the cover, she's just like, oh, like, or like a shampoo ad or something.
Yeah.
Like she looks like she's trying to be pretty,
Yeah.
but she's full of herself, maybe.
All right. So coming back to our idea of duality, Dickens uses specific word choice and a specific structure of duality to set up this opening chapter. As you continue on, we are going to find out a lot more context. But at this point, we can make predictions about what he's contrasting. So I think we can guess that these dualities will be a theme throughout the novel. So does anyone have any predictions of what things he might be contrasting based on what we've already
Two cities,
Okay, and how did you guess that?
the title.
Good. Kelly?
Is it, well, just going off what Colleen said, is it London and Paris? Because those are the two